This is the Conscious Hour. This is part 3 of Trump's ability to shoot anybody he wants and not have to worry about it. Or if he gives the order to have anybody shot, they don't have to worry about it. Let's listen to this further. This is scary times, folks. We've never had a president like this in the history of our country.
Oh, this is magical unicorn legal reasoning because there's no support for any of that. Impeachment and removal is not a condition precedent to criminal prosecution anyway. And now we are at a place, Miles, where it is viable. It's viable that the president could order something like that. I'll ask you, what do you think are the guardrails that exist presently that have stopped him thus far from doing it? Because he had an appetite, not only according to you, according to his own Secretary of Defense, Esper, he had an appetite for wanting the military to shoot protesters in the legs. And Secretary Esper said it was not only a question when he said, why can't we just shoot protesters in the legs? It was also a suggestion. Fortunately, it never ripened into an order. And I've done interviews with military experts.
So ask yourself a question. Have you ever heard any president in the history of the United States speak like Trump? No. To the Trump supporters, and you're a Christian, you remember the words, thou shalt not kill. So you might find this shocking, this discussion. You might say, oh, it's not real. But no, Trump has said that. He has the ability to shoot anybody, and he can get pardoned. Or he can order somebody to shoot anybody, and he can pardon them. Let's keep listening to this, folks. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I don't trust either party because they've never represented us. But let's keep going here.
Experts on the responsibility, and I was an active duty Army JAG for 6.5 years, the responsibility of military members to, one, obey lawful orders, but two, disobey patently unlawful orders. What guardrails do you think exist right now,
well,
if any?
And you know, and this is one of the things that Trump and his loyalists have said I was treasonous for, is that you mentioned the title of my Times opinion piece, part of the resistance inside the Trump administration, to be very explicit with people. I wasn't talking about resisting the president's lawful policies. I made very clear what I was talking about is resisting things that were illegal. That's not treasonous defiance. That's literally what we make every single public servant swear an oath to, is to uphold the Constitution and to disobey unlawful orders. That's the resistance I'm talking about. That's the resistance that we no longer see inside the federal government because they've made sure to squash it. And, you know, I do worry about that, Glenn. I do worry about people not disobeying those orders. And that example that you give of Esper, I actually witnessed something about 2 years before that, before Mark was Secretary of Defense. Trump had said the same thing to us in private, that he had asked us, he said, you know, why can't we just shoot them? There was a migrant caravan coming to the border. And, you know, as I recall, we gave him a scenario of like, look, a lot of these are like pregnant women and children. And his response to that was, well, yeah, we'll just shoot them in the legs then. And, you know, we were abhorred by that. And we thought we had talked the president out of ever saying anything like that out loud ever again. And then I'm on a flight on Coast Guard One, which is was our plane in the secretary's office at DHS, and we're headed somewhere, and we're watching, I think, CNN, and we see the president talking about the caravan, and he says, you know, if they throw rocks at our border agents, we're going to use rifles, and he starts talking about shooting the migrants. And I remember we called from the plane, Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis at the time, and basically said, hey, look, you know, your guys are down there now, because there were 6,000 troops co-deployed with CBP down the border. We said, your guys are down there now, and we've said all we can to the president about how this is unlawful. You know, can you call him and say this is against the rules of engagement? Like, we need someone else to come in and weigh in with the president. Just think about that for a second. The president of the United States multiple times over multiple years fantasized about shooting innocent people and had to have his senior staff call and tell him, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. Do you think right now he's just stopped fantasizing about those things? No, I don't think so.
Who are the guardrails? Who are making those calls that you all made when you were there? Yeah.
Who are the guardrails? So, a long way to back in to an answer to your question, Glenn, but I don't really think there are guardrails anymore. They're certainly not the public servants. Unfortunately, the law is a withering guardrail. I do think the Article 3 powers, the courts are doing what they can, but are in a very fragile position. I ultimately think the answer, I really do think the only guardrail left is the people themselves. It is the people themselves. It's what Thomas Jefferson said was the ultimate guardrail. And if there is one thing Donald Trump is scared of, is he's scared of being unpopular. He doesn't want to be unpopular. He does want people to like him. And when he sees mass mobilization and people taking to the streets, and when comedians make fun of him, he cannot stand it. And so people speaking out is making a real difference. And it's not just about Donald Trump. And I wrote about this the other day. It's also his lieutenants. The thing they are most scared of, and I tell you this with firsthand experience of being on the receiving end of it, is not the hearings. It's not the lawsuits. It's not criticism in the media. They are scared about all of those things on a daily basis. They don't like to see in their media clips, if you're Secretary of Homeland Security, that you're being criticized. They don't like to see that they're being mocked on South Park, even though they're pretending they think it's funny. They can't stand being criticized. But the thing they're most scared about is you. They are scared of people going on social media and exposing their misconduct. They're scared of cousins or friends or family members sending them emails and saying, what are you doing? Why are you defending this? They're terrified of this. They're scared of going to dinner and someone turning and saying, I can't believe you're still working in this administration. They're scared of a petition with 2 million names on it that pushes back against a Trump policy. They are terrified of that. And I can remember cabinet level people in the first Trump administration who were seen as his stormtroopers being terrified to go out and give public remarks where the audience might be given a microphone and be able to do Q&A because they didn't want to be confronted by you. And now, what I'm not saying is that we should go mimic the mob's tactics and go harass them in public. That's not what I'm saying. We don't want to mirror the mob that we're trying to stop. What I am saying is, in a civil and consistent way, call them out, because it makes a difference. This even happened to me when I was.
And that's the biggest message you can do, is call them out. So for all the Christians out there that support Donald Trump, call him out. Hold him accountable to the teachings of Jesus. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not judge. Judge not thy fellow man. How about love? How about let's create a world based on love, not on objectifying people, not on making judgments of people, honoring that gift of life. And you know what's important about that? Once we start realizing that life is sacred, all life, that we really truly like living, and 99% of the people in the world love living. What they don't like are these tyrannical, evil warriors that keep thinking, oh, war's the answer to everything, and we can come and steal your resources, shoot all your people, and in Gaza and along the coastlines, we're going to build a future city because we can. We don't care about anybody else but our pocketbook. That's the only thing they care about. Pretty disgusting state of affairs the world we have right now. And the only way it's going to stop is you have to get active. You got to make phone calls. You got to do what you can do to tell your congressional representatives you're done with them. You'll never vote for them again, because they're on the wrong side of Jesus. It's real simple. Very simple. If they don't believe in Jesus, say you're working for the devil, then maybe they believe in that one. And then they might smile and go, oh yeah, I like working for the devil. Thanks for tuning in to the Conscious Hour.